Here we have to solve simultaneously. Now, in grade 10, we have two ways of solving simultaneously. I will show you both. So the first one is my favorite, which is called substitution. The reason it's my favorite is you only use that in grade 11 and 12. But in grade 10, you can still use elimination if you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. You could even use elimination in grade 11 and 12, but we use substitution a lot. Okay, so how does substitution work? Well, what you do is you look at this equation. So we'll call this number 1, we'll call this number 2, and you got to try get x or y alone in one of them. So I can see that there's a y over here. So I'm going to take that equation and I'm going to get the y alone by taking the 2x to the other side. So it becomes negative because over here it's positive. And when you go over the equal sign, you'll change the sign. I'm now going to call that equation 3. I'm then going to substitute, hence we call it the substitution method. Yep. We're going to substitution. We're going to substitute that new equation into the equation over here that we haven't yet used. We haven't yet used number 2. Okay. So what does it mean to substitute? It means to replace. Okay. So you're going to replace. So we're going to replace this. So we're going to replace y with 8 minus 2x because you see how they are equal. So wherever I see a y over here, I'm going to put a bracket. Okay, so you see how I've just taken this equation, and when I saw a y, I put a bracket. And then I'm going to replace the y with 8 minus 2x. Okay, that's all you do. And now you're just going to go and solve. So you're going to multiply the 2 in, so that's going to give us 16 take away 4x. Okay, you can solve this however you want, but I'm going to take the 16 over to the right, so it's going to end up becoming negative 16. And now what is minus 4 plus 3? Well, that's going to give you minus 1, so minus 1x, and on the right you're going to end up with minus 18. Then to get x alone, you divide both sides by minus 1, and you should end up with x equals to 18. That is not the final answer. You also have to go and find y. So what you then do is you come back to equation number 3, because y is equal to 8 minus 2x, and we already found x as 18, which we just found over here. And so you would then end up with 8 minus that. Why did I just write the same thing twice? And so if you go type that on the calculator, that's what I was meant to say, you end up with negative 28. So x is 18, y is minus 28. If you're happy with that method, you don't need to watch this method. But for those of you that like elimination, let me show you how to do it. You put the x's on top of the x's, you put the y's on top of the y's, and you put the numbers on top of the numbers. So this would be like that. So you see how I switched this around, okay? Now, we either want to try and make these two exactly the same or these two exactly the same. I'm going to try and make these two the same. How could I do that? I could multiply this equation by 2. So I could multiply this whole equation by 2. And so what we would end up with, so we're going to multiply by 2 over here and by 2 over here. And so we're going to end up with 4x for this part plus 2y, because I just multiplied by 2, and then 8 times 2 is 16. Now that these two are the same, I can minus these two equations. So you could either say this one minus this one, or you could say this one minus this one. It doesn't really matter. So if I call this equation 2 and this equation 1, I'm going to take equation 2 minus equation 1. So what is 4x minus 3x? Well, that'll just give you x. And what is 2y minus 2y? 0. And what is 16? Be careful now. What is 16 minus minus 2? So it actually becomes 16 plus 2, because it's 16 minus, and then there's also a minus. So 2 minuses make a positive. So you end up saying 16 plus 2. And so x is 18, just like we got over there. How do we find y? To find y, you can just go plug the x that we just found into any of these equations. You can plug it into this original equation over here. You could plug it into this one over here. You could plug it into this new one. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go plug it into here. So 2 times x plus y is equal to 8. And so 36 plus y is equal to 8. I'm going to take the 36 over to the other side, so it becomes negative, and then I get negative 28 for y. So you get the exact same answers, of course, just two different methods.